Welcome to the Oddity Shop, where the bizarre is always on sale.
Welcome in, you oddballs. This is Kara, your curator, with your other curator, Zachary, and we are the
Oddity Shop podcast, ?
And we do...
I think like weird, creepy, odd, strange, paranormal, bizarre stories from around the globe. Sometimes, most of the time.
Yep.
All the time.
Yep.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I know by the time this comes out, I'll be back from there, but I also just found out not only on my West Virginia trip will I be passing the Mothman Museum, I will be 20 minutes south of the Braxy and a Bigfoot museum.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
I'm going to meet the Flatwoods Monster.
I just thought about the museum would be cute. Did you?
Braxy.
No.
Braxy is the Flatwoods Monster. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know, but then you said Bigfoot Museum.
Yeah, Julia said that there's one by the Braxy thing because I've finally got her to start looking into cryptid things as well.
So no, but was it you that just sent me something about the Mothman statue, or what did I see? It's something.
The last thing I told you was about somebody giving him the tramp stamp.
There's something else going on with him. Why do I want to say?
I don't know.
There's something else going on. Oh, dang.
Speaking of Julia, though, I finally got her to watch a Sam and Colby episode. I got her into the Chernobyl one, so we went urban exploring, not paranormal.
That's all right. You know. That's all right. Get her in there.
Right.
Dip her toes.
I also have one more thing for you.
Good, because I don't have any.
We haven't done a podcast recommendation in a while.
Uh-huh.
I listened to the Glove Guy episode on Morbid the other day that they had with a guest who was talking about the Glove Guy.
Yeah.
Holy fucked upness.
The Glove Guy is disgusting.
Disgusting. This is going to sound absolutely terrible, but it was refreshing. It's not the right word for it, but it was refreshing to hear straight men as a victim. I feel like it's easy for men sometimes to downplay the feeling of intrusiveness that women go through when guys are being creepy.
Well,
so to hear how they dealt with it is
right. And a lot of them was like with humor, kind of like joking it off, but like it's not funny. And I don't understand how he was still able to like rent vehicles and
like a different vehicle every day, basically,
or like every weekend. I think it was. It's not, ew. I hate it. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I listened to it a couple different times, or not a couple different times. I listened to it over a couple days, and every time I picked it back up, I'm like, this is so weird.
Yeah, ew. Yeah, I didn't like that episode.
Anyways, though, it's a very uncomfortable episode, but I think it's a really good, and it's kind of like unique enough that it feels new again. It's not the same true crime story, which they're not all the same. Obviously, I'm downplaying victim stories and all that, but it was a very well done episode, and I think it's just something completely different.
Yes, and there's listen to it. It's crazy. It's a lot went into it. Well, okay.
Ugh.
Do you have a question for me?
I do have a question for you. Are you ready? Yes, I won't ask you one more time. Did you or did you not go through the phase in your childhood of being completely obsessed with Egypt?
Duh.
Okay. I was going to say, or were you normal?
I'm still completely obsessed with Egypt.
But like, I was like, okay, I had that like the big golden book with Egypt and the sarcophagus on it that was like every kid who was obsessed with Egypt had.
So I still am mad to this day that the book fair had this Egypt book.
That's the one.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to get it because we didn't have the money for it. So rub it into my fucking face, Zachary.
I got it for Christmas.
I asked for it for every year in elementary school. I wanted it.
Oh, there's just something about Egyptian culture that's just like
so bad.
I don't know why. Well, and we've talked about, I think it probably all stems from our obsession with the movie The Mummy.
Yeah, but this is before
At least that's where it started. Was it?
No, I was obsessed. For me, I was obsessed before The Mummy. I was older when The Mummy came out.
Okay.
I was obsessed with Egypt
because you're a couple years older.
Yeah.
I think that started it for me, but like there's just something about like ancient
My mom thinks I was like Cleopatra in my past life or something.
Ooh, well, hold on to that thought.
Okay.
So I am not taking you to Egypt. I am going to take you to London.
Okay.
We're going to spend plenty of time in Egypt, though, so don't get upset. I don't really know how to classify this episode. but I had never heard it before. I don't think you would have heard it before, but I don't think what you said earlier was far off.
Okay.
So this is the story of Dorothy Eady, or known as Seti.
I think I actually do know this. I could be wrong.
I'll start telling it. You let me know.
Okay.
So we're going to 1904, London, England.
Okay.
And an Irish couple, Reuben and Caroline Eady, give birth to their daughter, Dorothy Eady. So they're like a normal middle-class family. They only had the one kid. Mom raises the kid. Dad was a master tailor. And Dorothy was described as like a pretty normal child for the first few years of her life until age 3, when she had a little incident. So Dorothy is playing near the top of a staircase. She trips and falls down the stairs, and her family can't wake her up. So they call a doctor, the family doctor. He comes over to their house. He knows that she's like a bit past unconscious. She's dead.
Oh.
So Dorothy has passed away from a traumatic brain injury.
You're so fucking stupid. I hate you. She's a bit past unconscious. She's dead.
She's dead. So he does a few tests, as doctors do, and she is pronounced dead by the family doctor.
How old is she?
Don't get sad.
What did you say, 4?
3. 3. Don't get sad. The doctor leaves. He's going to go get the embalming kit as well as a death certificate. He comes home to a very upset set of parents. He's ready to start preparing the body for a funeral, and Dorothy is playing in her bed. So you see, when the doctor was gone, the family, mourning the loss of their daughter, starts to hear noises from her bedroom because they had laid her on the bed. Yeah. They go up there, and she was just kind of like seemed really agitated and was laying in bed. The family had seen her unconscious, is what they thought. The doctor had pronounced her dead, and he's like, what the hell is going on here? And gets basically kicked out of their home.
I don't know if I would kick him out of the home, but I would also just be really concerned that like she was potentially like completely unconscious to the point that the doctor thought she was dead. I don't think I'd kick him out, but I do understand that they're like, holy shit, you just made us think that our daughter's dead.
Right.
I get that.
I mean, they're going through grief and then ungrief. I would probably kick this person out.
That doctor's
too.
probably like, holy shit.
But I mean, from what everyone and all the articles and videos I could see, and even from Dorothy's mouth herself, she died. She was dead for a few hours, and she's come back. Okay.
But she was agitated, which I guess.
She was kind of like, probably because she was just being ignored in her room.
Everyone's downstairs crying like weirdos.
Right. But she had also changed. It was pretty drastic. Now, going back to the doctor, he was a legitimate doctor. He was the family doctor. He could find no vitals, no signs of life. It's not just like he looked at her and was like, oh, this child's dead.
Yeah.
Like, he really checked her out. I would kind of think the doctor was full of shit if it wasn't for how Dorothy was acting. Something to keep in mind for the rest of the story, and whether you believe either side of this, it's still really weird. So there's people are in sort of two camps. One is the group who believes she died. She has somehow come back from the dead. And the other camp thinks she suffered a traumatic head injury.
Okay.
Right. Was never dead. Was like maybe comatose or something.
Comatose, yeah.
Whatever way that turns out to be, like the real way, Dorothy believes she was dead. And this is still wild.
What's up, oddballs? If you know us, then you know by now that we absolutely love cryptids.
And we also have a serious problem when it comes to buying things, especially cute things. And now we found 16%nation.com.
Whether you're into the mysterious allure of the Loch Ness Monster or the legendary Sasquatch, 16% Nation has a plushie for every cryptid lover out there.
Named 16% Nation because only 16% of the population actually believes in Bigfoot. But they have tons of cool stuff. Creatures such as the Sasquatch, the Mothman, the Fresno Nightcrawler, and so much more. Each one is crafted with an attention to detail and made from high-quality materials. So they're not just cute, they're conversation starters.
Absolutely. Picture this. You're lounging on the couch, and what's that peeking out? Oh, just your very own Fresno Nightcrawler. It's the perfect blend of mysterious and adorable.
And if stuffed animals aren't quite your thing, they have shirts, prints, jewelry, stickers, and so much more, so you also can show off your love for these bizarro creatures.
Everything they have is so adorable and right up our alley, and we wanted to make sure that we shared it with y'all cryptid loving listeners.
So head on over to 16%nation.com. That's 16%nation.com. Their website will also be linked down in our show notes and on our website.
And listen up, oddballs. Use the coupon code ODDITY, ODDITY, at checkout and enjoy free shipping on orders over $60.
Bye.
Bye. This does sound vaguely familiar, but I don't know yet.
When she wakes up, she immediately starts asking to be brought home, but could not elaborate on what that meant at all. She also wakes up with what's called foreign accent syndrome.
Yes.
Okay, which I think should be called foreign accent disorder, so you could say it's not just fad, Mom.
I want this to happen to me.
Foreign accent syndrome is a rare neurological condition that causes a person to suddenly develop an accent that sounds different or foreign, even though it's not their native accent. FAS is often caused by brain damage from a stroke, traumatic brain injury, or other conditions, such as multiple sclerosis or it said conversion disorder. I didn't really know what that meant. But in other cases, no cause has been identified.
Which is so weird to me because how? Just because you have a brain injury,
Right.
How do you just change your accent? Like if you've never been around it to know it or hear it, how does that even happen?
It doesn't make sense. I mean, that's some Akashic Records shit.
That makes no sense to me, but okay.
No.
But I want it to happen to me.
Oh, you would be good with like a South African.
Or like Russian. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Voronka.
Lauren.
Okay. So in Dorothy's case, though, it couldn't really be determined right away where this accent was from, but they knew it wasn't local. So while she can't describe what she means by asking her parents to take her home, as a kid, she starts to have some pretty strange dreams.
I'm sorry. Maybe we're going to clarify. Does she know who all these people are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, she knows who her parents are.
Okay, so it's not like she's like, okay.
So she's retained herself, but there's
Like
something that's
spurts
happening inside her.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So she starts to have these dreams that she's walking through these like saturated gardens and columns of limestone. And she would wake up in the middle of the night, like sad and heartbroken, insisting to her parents, right, that her home was elsewhere and they needed to take her there.
That's
Kara,
so
she's
sad.
3, 4, and 5 years old when this is happening.
That's so sad because it's like heartbreaking because you have no idea what she's talking about or needs.
And how does a 3-year-old have a sense of what, like, they would have a sense of what is home, but they wouldn't have a sense
Like a longing.
naturally of a longing for a home that they've been away from. So in 1908, her and her family take a trip to the British Museum. At this point, she's 4 years old, going on 5, and they hit the Egypt exhibit.
Ding, ding, ding.
Dorothy freaks out. She is
Home.
engrossed. She is running around. She's kissing the feet of statues of pharaohs. She's asking her family to just leave her there. She becomes obsessed with Europe, or not Europe,
Egypt.
with Egypt at this point. So her family, you know, they're like, all right, well, she likes this. We're going to get her some Egyptian stuff. So a little while later, she's going through some okay,
What
here's
year
the
was
thing.
this? I'm sorry.
1908.
Okay.
Every story is very consistent with what happened that I could find. I found a bunch of videos, a bunch of articles. Everyone's timeline, though, is slightly different, but it's all the same events or like how things happen. So the next part I'm going to say is some people said she was looking through a magazine of Egypt. Some people said she got like Polaroids from Egypt, whatever it is. As she's going through these pictures, she comes across, like, in 1908, the modern day ruins of a temple. And she looks and goes, this is it. This is my home. This is where I've been going in my dreams. This is where I used to live. What she's looking at is a picture of the ruins of the temple of Seti the First, the pharaoh. And this is situated in the city of Abydos, Egypt.
Okay.
You know what we're doing now. It's time for history. We're going to leave Dorothy for a minute. We're going to go back to Abydos. So, you know, the Nile runs north and south through Egypt, right? Cairo is where the Great Pyramids are. Straight 50 miles down on the Nile is Abydos.
Okay.
Thebes and Luxor are the 2 closest cities.
Okay. Thebes.
All right. I know. I love Thebes. It's just like, it rolls off the tongue. Abydos is one of the oldest of the ancient Egyptian cities. It's where like a lot of the early pharaohs are buried and their tombs are, along with like a ton of temples to many of the gods. There's a necropolis, which is, a cemetery for people who weren't the pharaohs, and other historic sites. This temple, though, is built there by Seti I, a pharaoh of ancient Egypt in the 13th century.
Okay.
It's rumored to have had some amazing gardens. Inside it, they have a thing called the Abydos King List, which is basically like the historic list of kings and pharaohs. Also has, like, throughout the time, hieroglyphs from a bunch of different time periods.
Oh.
So they almost said, like, this is Egyptian version of the Rosetta Stone because it helped them translate some of the lost hieroglyphs.
That's cool.
Totally cool place. We won't go into too much of the history here. I won't bore you too much. But it was filled when it was working, right? It was filled with priestesses. And this place was dedicated to what god do you think?
Why would you quiz me like this?
Okay. It's okay. It's not Anubis, the god of death, but it is Osiris.
Oh.
Lord of death and rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Interesting.
So let's go back to Dorothy. So she's infatuated with Egypt. She decides to just fully lean into it. So she's still having dreams of the temple. She's begging her parents to take her there. And she's like sucking up every bit of like Egyptian culture and history that she can get her hands on. She states as like a young kid that she feels a spiritual connection to Abydos and the temple, but her like obsession with Egypt goes a little past you and me.
What I was thinking is she'd be like one of the little kids on the Ellen DeGeneres show because, they're like, what are the weird facts that you know? And she'd be like rattling off all the Egypt shit like at 4.
I think one of the articles I read said she would have been on the Ellen show. Like she would have been perfect for it.
That's awesome.
So instead, though, what happens is she gets kicked out of Sunday school for comparing Christianity to ancient Egyptian religion and was trying to convince the other kids that there were vast similarities in the stories of the Bible and the stories they told in ancient Egypt, and that Christians had it wrong and were actually worshiping Egyptian gods.
What a little badass.
She said Christianity reminded her of her old religion. Which, this is such a episode for another day, but if you take most religions down to their base parables and creation stories and everything, they overlap. I mean, the 3 wise men, the star in the sky, all that stuff, Garden of Eden. Every religion has some sort of version of this.
Yep.
Okay. She later gets expelled from her all-girls school for refusing to sing a hymn that had a line in it that called on God to curse the swart Egyptians.
Why are we cursing them anyway?
Old Testament religion. The Jews were the slaves of the Egyptians.
Okay.
Christians and Egyptians never got along. The whole like, what is it? The 10 the bad things, what Passover, the 10
commandments.
What is it called? No, the locusts and the raining blood.
Oh
and
shit! Oh my god!
What is that word,
dude? You're fucking pissing me off because I know this. Oh my
frogs. God. The plagues.
Thank you. Fucking idiots, I tell ya.
She's really into Egypt and is saying like.
So how old is she at this point that she's getting suspended?
She's a young kid.
So she's still little.
Between 8 and 13.
Okay.
So at the age of 15, she moves in with her grandma in Sussex, mostly because at this time London is getting bombed to shit during World War I. Her and her family had a really close call, so they're like, you're going to grandma's.
No.
But grandma's house in Sussex is really close to a public library that has a lot of Egyptian stuff. So now she's looking to Egyptian history, but she also starts to get really interested in reincarnation. Probably that whole link with Osiris. It was also about this time that the dreams got a little bit different, and she really leans into this reincarnation thing. So she starts to claim that not only is she now visiting home in the dreams, that she is also being visited by the mummy of Pharaoh Seti the First. And like night terrors when this is happening, sleepwalking, other disturbances, almost like she's in like a trance-like state.
So she's not happy about it.
She's disturbed, because she doesn't understand why he's coming to her in like a mummy form.
Gotcha. That would be scary.
As people who didn't understand, I mean, I don't think this is mental health, but like she spends a lot of time in asylums, basically, or sanitariums, they called it then.
Yeah, sanatoriums.
Especially in her early 20s. But she never backs down, right? But what she does is she gets smart about it. So she starts to hide some of the stranger things that are happening to her. So she's now in her mid-20s. She's working for her father. He works in like theater, like cinema theater.
Mm-hmm.
But on the side, she's usually using all the money to collect Egyptian artifacts and still spending time at the museum. She starts learning how to read hieroglyphs and picks it up freakishly fast, though. Like within months, she is she's proficient in hieroglyphs. One of the people who worked at the museum said it was as if somebody was remembering how to read them, not learning from scratch.
Them. That's crazy. That's awesome.
Her dreams also change again, and she starts to be visited by an entity that she claims described its name as Hor-Ra, Hor-Ra.
Oh. When
she has these dreams, she's going into the trance-like state again, but Hor-Ra is telling her a story.
I would say, what Hor-Ra is?
You're thinking of the god Ra.
Okay.
It's very speculative of, okay, once again, two camps, right? She's dead, she's reincarnated, and she's actually having these. She has a traumatic brain injury. She's learning a lot about this, and this is how it's projecting. Either way, she starts to either while she's sleeping write, or when she wakes up, she's writing as fast as she can these dreams. All in hieroglyphs. She writes 70 pages. Here's what she learns in this
like she's
writing.
Astral projecting in a way.
So Hor-Ra tells her that she is the reincarnation of a woman from Abydos.
Clearly.
She learns that she was born to a poor man who lost his wife. Okay. So her mom, when she was 3 years old. 3, her father, wifeless, is unable to care for and raise a child.
Okay.
So he has to make a choice. So he takes his daughter, whose name Dorothy learns is Ben Treshet.
Okay.
Which translates to Harp of Joy.
Oh.
And he takes her up to a temple in Abydos.
Oh, no.
And leaves her there. So what would happen is people who couldn't take care of their children would leave them there, and they would become the priestesses of the temple. She's brought up, right? She's trained as a priestess. And at the age of 12, you have to make a choice. And you can either go out into the world and live a normal life and leave the priesthood behind, or you can become a consecrated virgin and remain in the temple. So consecrated virgin basically means, for all intents and purposes, you are married to Osiris and you can't boink anybody else for the rest of your life. She takes the vows.
Oh.
2 years later, after taking the vows, Ben Treshet is visited at the temple by Pharaoh Seti I. It's his temple. Of course, he's going to come visit.
Interesting. Okay.
They get along real good.
Do they boink?
Oh, real good. They become lovers. She breaks her vows. By the way, he also has like a wife.
He probably has multiple.
Side. Yeah. Well, not super surprisingly, you can't get Plan B in ancient Egypt. And she is now pregnant with the pharaoh's kid.
I'm assuming this is a secret relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
But she starts to become racked with guilt. She goes to the high priest about it. She confesses, I'm pregnant. I had an affair with Pharaoh Seti. What do I do? He says,
she gets murdered.
There is no offense more bad and more terrible. You will have to go to trial and you will almost certainly face death. Ben Treshet says, I'm sure the ancient Egyptian version of fuck this shit, I'm out. And she takes her own life before facing the trial.
Oh.
So Hor-Ra tells Dorothy all these details and lets her know that her draw to Egypt is because she is in fact none other than the reincarnation of the Harp of Joy, Ben Treshet, just hundreds of years later.
Duh.
Dorothy now knows why she was longing for this temple in Abydos. She kind of accepts that she's the reincarnation of Ben Treshet. But she's sort of careful with, obviously she spent some times in, asylums. She's careful with this information.
Yeah.
But she decides she's not going to work for her dad anymore. And in 1931, in her mid-20s, So she's 27. She starts to work for the Egyptian Public Relations magazine, where she wrote articles. She drew political cartoons. And it's all for her support of Egyptian independence, which in the early 1900s is like a fairly big thing going on, right? And most Europeans don't understand it. So she's now taking this weird thing that's happened to her and kind of using her weirdness for a cause she believes in, which I think is really cool.
No, it is cool.
So this job leads her to meet a man named Imam Abdel Maguid, an Egyptian-born man who is teaching English in London, which how you even find that life path, I don't know.
Parts of this sound so familiar, like that does.
Maybe you have heard this one. I hadn't. And shout out to Mark, my dad. He's the one who watched something on History Channel on this and told me to write this one. I meant to say that earlier. So this is where we say write in episodes. I need more than just my parents to listen to me, okay?
Yeah.
So anyways, they get married, and in 1931, she finally gets her dream, and her and Imam move to Cairo, Egypt.
Yay!
So upon arrival, she's like, I am finally home, okay? So she's married to him.
She's taken so happy.
She's thrilled. She's kind of taken in by the family. She's soaking up the culture. She has a son that she names Seti.
Oh my God, I love it.
I don't. Because
I kind of
that's weird as fuck. She died in her past life because she had an affair with a man named Seti, and now she names her son Seti.
Yeah, I guess.
You know she's telling Imam these stories, and he's like, can't you name him after me? I don't know. I made that part up.
Maybe she didn't tell him. I guess now I don't know if I love it now that you...
In ancient Egyptian culture, though, when you had a son or a daughter, the mother would take on a name that was the mother of so-and-so. So she becomes Seti.
Okay.
Is what she starts calling herself, the mother of Seti.
Okay.
At this point in Cairo, when she's living there, it's not something people would do, but it's something they did in ancient times.
Okay.
So a mom is like, this is all kind of getting a little bit weird.
Oh, really?
I know my family loves Dorothy, but after 2 years of being married to each other, he divorces her and moves to Iraq.
Oh, okay.
Which, like, how bad do things have to be?
Well, I'm sure maybe
if you want to leave your wife and move to Iraq. Yeah,
why did he have to move to Iraq? So he just left his son too?
Then again, though, Egypt is pretty much the Middle East, so it's probably not. But yes, he does leave his son. So Dorothy, now Seti, she decides to stay in Cairo. She's raising her son. And she starts working for an antiquity company where she is writing articles, books. She's translating a lot of works from Egyptian to English, which is not something that was regularly done in this time. And she becomes like an expert in the field of Egyptology.
Okay. So are we saying, or we don't actually know, but are we saying that he left because her obsession got so weird?
This was all very unclear.
Okay.
Now, and I'll get into this a lot more later. Much of what we know about her story is very firsthand from Dorothy.
Gotcha.
There's not many details on because she did not like to talk about it.
Got you. Okay.
I would imagine, though, naming your son after your previous lover doesn't help keep the relationship together.
Yeah, but I don't know. Okay, moving on.
Okay, so this whole time she's in Cairo, remembered, not Abydos. She's got to travel there a few times, but she has never really been allowed into the temple, and I'll tell you why in a minute, mostly because it just hasn't really been excavated yet. But in Cairo, she starts to, as she's working with this antiquities and doing all these things, right, she gets a little bit of notoriety, at least in the professional field. She makes some good friends, but she's always kind of like walking around the pyramids or the Sphinx, or like people think she's just sort of, they're almost fearful of her. Like, why is this white woman being reincarnated by this? But like, she knows so much that people are just very weary of her.
I mean, I guess I could see that. I mean, especially at the time, that if it was now, probably not so much, but especially the time, like, why is she so intrigued?
And she's also making all these claims, but like has enough weirdness that it's backing up. So people are just like, I guess weary or uncomfortable is more than fearful is the right word.
Sure. I get it.
But anyway, so she has notoriety, though, in the professional realm. And in 1956, at the age of 50, she gets the offer of a lifetime to work in the excavation of Abydos and move there. She's down. She takes this job. She starts to live there, act like a local. Her home there, she buys in the cradle of this mountain called Pega the Gap.
Pega the Gap?
Which the ancients believe led to the afterlife. Yeah, it's PEGA the gap.
Pega the Gap? I like
Pega
it.
the Gap.
Pega the Gap.
Okay, so far we have this odd character. You can either think she kind of made this all up and just concocted this story to make herself feel important, and just learned a shit ton about Egypt, and she was faking it.
Yeah.
And then my next line is, but not Kara, because she believes everything I tell her. But there are people who doubt her, so they decide to test her. Okay. So the chief inspector from the antiquities department tests her by the first time taking her to the temple. They take her in the dead of night. They turn off all the electricity. They give her, or he holds a torch, so he doesn't even give her the torch. Remember, it's being excavated. The layout is relatively unknown, and he would go, take me to this room. And she, in complete darkness, would lead the way right to that room.
That's creepy.
Then he would snuff out the torch and say, okay, behind you is the art of, or the art in this room. Describe to me from your visions what the art is. And she would do it to a T. This art, this is newly excavated. It has not been published anywhere.
And yeah, there's no way she could have gotten in there.
And she has never seen it in the daylight.
Yeah.
So now people start to believe her a little bit, and she goes off. So remember I told you she was talking about the gardens before that she would walk through in her dreams? Yeah. They don't know where the gardens are. Nobody's been able to find the gardens.
Okay.
She walks out back of the temple, walks about 100 yards and says, start digging here. They find a tunnel, which is now a tunnel, was a walkway then. Yeah. And they find the remains of the garden. She describes before it's excavated the exact layout, and they find the exact layout of the garden.
That's incredible.
She remembered this so much because from her dreams, this is where she met Seti the First. Over the years, she does this over and over. Now, there's a couple things. She also claimed to know where Queen Nefertiti's tomb was. She said it was close to and probably under Tutankhamun's.
Okay.
Now, Seti and Tutankhamun didn't get along, so she's like, I don't want to tell you exactly where it is, but she gives them the roundabout reason. Here's the thing, though, that's kind of, it was hard at the time when she was really doing this work to take her seriously because they couldn't find it. 20 years later, in the 70s, they do those underground scans, and they find a tomb underneath that most people are fairly sure that it was Nefertiti's, directly underneath King Tut. Same exact situation. She's talking about this vast library that was in Cairo that nobody could find. They could find some archival evidence of it. And she says it's under the foot of the Sphinx. 20 years later, after she says this, scans show they find basically a big ass library under the foot of the Sphinx. This is just some white girl from London. She should not know these, right? And so up until this point, I'm like, okay, she could have learned all this shit, really had a good ruse, but you cannot just know these things.
No way.
She's just a badass. I'm in love with her. While living in Abydos, okay, every night now she starts to visit the temple. She starts to recite the priestess's prayers. On the birthdays of Osiris and Isis, she would observe the ancient rituals, bring beer and wine offerings. She'd bring tea biscuits. She learned the lament of Isis and Osiris, which she learned as a little girl. And it's this big ritual sort of thing she would recite. She turns one of the rooms of the temple into her personal office where she carried out her work.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And befriended a poisonous cobra that she would feed on a regular basis that the guards of the temple were like, what the fuck is this?
Dude, I'm in love with her.
During all this, right, she's also doing philanthropic work, especially making sure that the women of Abydos have access to birth control.
Oh my God, she's amazing.
She's amazing. Okay, so in 1964, she hits retirement age, which in Egypt at this time is not you've hit retirement age, you can stop working. It's you're retiring, you're done. So, and she's 60 years old, and for a minute she tried to adjust to life, and she starts fighting. She gets a special exception to return to work for another 5 years in Abydos.
That's awesome.
Until her official retirement in 64.
That's amazing.
So she retires in 64. Mind you, that whole 20 years of not finding those 2 items, that happened in the late 70s. So it all happened after her retirement, where even more of her claims were actually like...
That's insane.
However, after her retirement, she continues to give tours of the temple. She sells needleworks and just becomes a total local.
Oh my God.
But she's kind of acting the same way she did up in Cairo, where some people, it's like in the professional world, she's really accepted. But to like some of the locals, because she's trying so hard to fit in, but she never truly does, they're always like, they're fearful of this white woman who's acting like the reincarnated priestess of Pharaoh Seti. So the whole time she's in Egypt, though, she continues to have her visions and hallucinations. In fact, Imam's dad at one point says that he had walked into her room and saw entity Pharaoh kneeling at the end of her bed.
That's crazy.
This stuff never stops. She believes that she was a reincarnated priestess.
I believe it too.
And like I said, it got her a lot of notoriety. She was definitely seen as an expert in the field, but she had a hard time getting close to people, and she was never truly accepted. But as a priestess and the, side piece of Seti, she decides that she's going to build a tomb for herself.
Oh my God, this is amazing. This is fucking amazing.
Dorothy is denied last minute.
I was going to say
the building of her tomb.
You were going to be able to do this. That's sad, though.
It is very sad. And on April 21st, 1981... only 4 years after the last of her discoveries were actually discovered, Seti passes away at the age of 77. And she is buried in an unwanted plot of land in the middle of the desert with no grave marker, just a pile of stones.
That's really sad. She couldn't even get a grave marker? Why? Mm-mm. Where the fuck's her son?
I think that's one thing I didn't find much of.
Like, he can't fucking get her a gravestone?
I think as she got older and leaned more into this, right, and she starts to prove herself, the more she was right, the more people were very afraid of her because they just didn't understand. So they believed her remarkable skills to find sites. They knew she had knowledge of Egypt that she just shouldn't have had. But there was a hefty amount of people that just thought she was a crazy lady with a head injury.
No.
And that's the thing is like...
I don't go that way.
The biggest argument against her, right, is 99% of the stories that we know come from, and you can watch, there's tons of interviews with her. Most of what we know is firsthand knowledge, except there are medical records that back up some of her claims, right, because she was in sanitariums. And even though most of what we have comes from her from 1908 to 1977... her stories, when because she's interviewed a lot, she loves to talk about this.
I would too if this was my life.
Her story doesn't change, and liars change their stories. Details, especially, we're talking over 70 years, and it's consistent accounts from Seti herself. So it's hard to verify from outside sources, but you can't keep that ruse and track of your lies for 70 years.
No. Here's the thing. I believe her. Case closed.
I know. I didn't even put... I typed, what do you think? And then I deleted it.
Case closed.
It reminds me of the Pollock twins a little bit. Episode 13 that we did way back 70-some episodes ago. Which is wild. But it's that, like, whether she died or not, I think is beside the point. But something happened to her where at that moment, she became Ben Treshet. Mm-hmm. Or Ben Treshet somehow... became uniquely tied to her.
To her, yeah.
And they were their same age. Remember Treshet, or not the same age, but Ben Treshet was dropped off at the temple at age 3.
Yeah.
It would make sense that if Dorothy, whether it was from this tragic accident or before and that just triggered it, it's weird that she starts to dream of the temple at the same age Ben Treshet would have entered the temple.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just... I think it was reincarnated just so she could get her story out there.
And this is where, like, I don't know enough about reincarnation to say one thing or the other. But for me, when I start to think of death and the afterlife, I always go back to energy isn't created or destroyed, it's transferred, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, And what we were just talking about with the time thing, where time layers on top of each other and sometimes it touches, like your essence. I've had enough personal experience with spirits and things to know that it is not just gone when you die.
No.
And I think somehow her and Dorothy, Seti, and Ben Treshet are unexplainably mixed.
Yeah, it is interesting because it's like, why her? Why not somebody in your family or like your bloodline? You know what I mean? That could like speak for you. But I think this makes it more believable because it's a complete outsider. It's a complete somebody that shouldn't know any of this kind of stuff.
Shouldn't know any of it.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit.
And I honestly, I don't think I would believe this one if it wasn't for the gardens and the
library
and Nefertiti, basically, you know, like
I believe
those are things that even studying the history books you wouldn't know. And this is 1908 to 1970 that she's doing this work. It wasn't until the 70s and 80s that they really excavated lots and lots of this stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if 1908 a 3-year-old would just know about Egypt. How?
No.
Even the basics
Absolutely
of it.
not.
I just don't think that. No, I don't know. Well, good job, dude. That's a good one.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
crazy.
And thank you, Dad.
Yeah, thanks, Dad.
Thanks for the story.
Thanks. Somebody else should share some stories.
Yeah. If you've been reincarnated or know of anybody who has, or anything in the reincarnation, or just thoughts on it, your theories.
Creepy kid stories. Mariel's probably got some more.
Yeah.
Because kids are creepy and they say some crazy things, so they might be reincarnated. Let us
And
know.
listen, Mariel, we can't just rely on you. You've given us stories. You got one in the first one. If you got another creepy story, write in. But tell your friends too.
I was like, come on, man.
And then I'm going to take care of the usual line here. If you made it this far into the episode, comment on our latest post with a wheel. You know, because reincarnation is kind of like a wheel.
Okay. Is there a wheel emoji? Yeah, there has to be, right?
There has to be, I'm sure.
Watch,
Tire, whatever. We'll know.
Tire.
We'll figure it out.
A wheel. A ship wheel.
But yeah, no, that's the story of Dorothy Eady / Seti.
I love it. Yeah, I am actually kind of weirded out though that she named her son. Yeah.
Yeah, that part doesn't sit well.
It's fine. Whatever. We can't talk about it anymore. But I believe it's her. She's reincarnated. Good job again, dude. So like Zach said,
Thank you.
Post a wheel. Post some stories. DM us some stories. Email us stories. Whatever you got, we'll take it.
Listen, we're gonna tease this. We might not be doing a paranormal postcard soon. If your story is good enough, you might just get your own episode, and that's all I'm gonna say.
He said it, not me.
Tell Kara she's pretty, and finally, what else should they do?
That's about it. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate you so very much. We wish you the best night, morning, evening, drive into work, whatever. All those things. We love and appreciate you. Thank you so much. Most importantly, creep it real, yeah, balls.
Goodbye.
Bye.